If you could meet someone who is starting their career, what advice would you give to them?
If somebody is entering the field now over the next 2-3 decades, you are living in some amazing, unprecedented times, and you have like a great opportunity. Be open to change. Don't be fixated on some ideas, but try to see how you can leverage your strength. Find out, what is it that you are the best at and what you're really interested in, and just go after it. Everybody's journey is unique. Just because I went to school with somebody in India, we all have the same background, doesn't mean that you come here, you'll have the same. I think that is fundamentally you got to be true to yourself.
So, how do you think they increase their salary?
If I know clear cut the value that I am bringing to the table, then you can try to maximize that value. And what I mean by that is, right? And it's very tough to leave. No company will give you that kind of money. So I think that is the main reason why. But
First of all, could you introduce yourself briefly?
yes. Hi, my name is Visvaluri. I've been originally from India, but have been here for the past close to 35 years, and been in the Bay Area, I think, since like 95. I work in high tech in the semiconductor industry.
So let's begin again
Yes.
the interview. If you could meet someone who is starting their career, what advice would you give to them?
Whoever is starting a career now, you are living in unbelievably exciting times, because the amount of change that's happening now is so fast, and you have an opportunity to contribute towards that. Any field you take, so if you think about the hardware field, software field, you name the industry, legal, financial, and all that, there's going to be so much change. So what I would ask you, or I would my recommendation would be, is to embrace change. Be open to change. Don't be fixated on some ideas, but try to see how you can leverage your strength. Find out, what is it that you are the best at and what you're really interested in, and just go after it. And I think the future is unbelievable, is what I think, mainly because of the impact of AI and everything else that you're going to see looking forward. Irrespective of the field, I feel what Chat GPT has done, what Perplexity has done, is for you to learn something new, it's much faster as compared to 20 years ago. Like, you don't have to do deep research on trying to figure this and out and all that. You have the answers pretty much there, and you can try to come up to speed a lot more faster, and then you can start moving forward. I think being curious in trying to find out how you can make some things better, or maybe curious on trying to create like a new product because you see some market missing some of the offerings, and I think anybody can become right now. I think that is what Gen AI applications are basically showing, is you can kind of pick up anything new and kind of just run with it. So I would think that if somebody is entering the field now over the next 2-3 decades, you are living in some amazing, unprecedented times, and you have like a great opportunity ahead.
Just enjoy that.
Just enjoy it. Exactly.
Don't worry too much.
Right. And make sure that at the end of the day, every week, as long as you're learning something, which that learning aspect is a very important aspect. If you're learning something new, then you can't go wrong with it. And I think that is what I basically would give a big advice on.
Okay, then most of them want to increase their salary. So, how do you think they increase their salary?
If I know clear cut the value that I am bringing to the table, then you can try to maximize that value. And what I mean by that is, if there is a demand for a certain kind of engineering jobs, right? And you know that you are able to do something better than any of the other people in your manager's team. And if you feel that you deserve or a much higher pay as compared to somebody else, my take is, having a discussion at least with your manager or even with HR with regards to your career progression. Because career progression definitely is a path towards a higher pay. And what a career progression also does is says that you are willing to take a lot more responsibility. So making more money is a function of, can I take more jobs and I make more money? So it's not like I'm doing the same job and I want more money, because nobody's going to do that. But if you are willing to take a lot more ownership, the company is willing to give it to you. If you feel that your company is not growing and they don't care for you trying to provide a lot more value and things like that, maybe it's time for you to look around and you can see other companies, because you believe that you're at a stage where you can contribute a lot more, and there's no harm in basically asking for that kind of a compensation. But having said that, it's always a function of which company you are in or which industry you're in. If it is a growth industry, the opportunities are there. If an industry is growing, there are a lot more opportunities for you to take more responsibilities because the industry is growing. But if an industry is shrinking, then even though you are very valuable, the company may not be able to do much. Primarily because the industry is getting smaller. But I would say, like in a growth industry, it's there is definitely a possibility of trying to grow along with the company. And one of the classic examples, what I have always seen, is trying to volunteer to solve some of the problems, because we are all kind of, let me finish my problem and let me just solve my thing, right? Very few people raise their hand and say, can I work on that problem? That's very few people, because at the end of the day, you're taking on more responsibility. But I think that is what management looks at and says, hey, I think those are the people I want, because they are the ones who are curious, they are the ones who want to learn more. And I think that is what the management is also looking at, who go beyond what their regular job requirement is and all that. So trying to show things where you're doing beyond, you're willing to do beyond than what is just required. I think that is, in general, I think a recipe for trying to get promoted, get more pay, things like that. And having said that, I think networking is a very, very big thing, which is not said enough. So networking in the US is, you get hired by people at the bottom line. And when people move between companies, trying to network with people who have worked in your company but who went to other companies, trying to find out if there are new opportunities. Maybe it is a different field, but it's a growth point of view for you to go. That is another way, another venue. And in Silicon Valley, it's pretty rampant, actually. People kind of, go together.
Okay, then let's go to the final chapter, such as a life lesson, something like that. So when we think of this modern society, people are so addicted to their time in the cell phone or social media. So do you think that is a problem in the personal perspective, and how do you think they solve that problem?
No, I think this is an unbelievable question, and I think a huge challenge as we go through over the next decade is what I think is the amount of device time that in the US, so they had the survey and they kind of took an average on how many hours do high school kids spend time on devices. And I think the answer is north of 5 hours a day. So if you think about it, they go to school, they spend 8 hours in school, they come back. And then even if you say that they sleep for about 7 hours, like 15 hours, imagine for 5 hours they are spending on the device, which is substantial actually, right? 5 hours a day is quite a bit. And what this 5 hours a day does is it basically takes away other things which you're supposed to do. It takes away other things like physical activities. You're kind of just, there is no situational awareness when you are in a device. And I think these are important negative things is what I think as having an impact. So I'm not saying like having a device is bad, but not having control on how much time you spend on the device. And so the way I kind of, there's this phenomenal book I read called Hacking of the American Mind, written by a Dr. Robert Lustig. So he talks a lot about this differentiation between pleasure and happiness. And it's a wonderful concept that he kind of brings about. And what he basically says is, when we are with devices, as an example, they invoke a lot of these pleasure activities. And what he means by pleasure is something that is very short-lived. It doesn't last. Normally, after a pleasure activity, we don't feel good because we know we wasted so much time or whatever it is. It's very low calories. Okay, and it's a very addictive behavior. That's the other thing. When you do any kind of a pleasure activity, it's very addictive. So you kind of get addicted to what is next, and every time you have to keep watching a little bit longer to get the same pleasure activity. And he says, the title of the book is The Hacking of the American Mind. He says the American companies, they know exactly what the pleasure and happiness equation is, but to confuse the consumers, they basically use the words interchangeably. So to give you an example, like Coca-Cola says, drink Coke, be happy. And how can you drink? Yeah, you can drink Coke once in a while, but 36 grams of sugar, how can you be happy with feeling something? That is what it's a paradoxically wrong, basically. And so they know that the marketing goes like that, and for somebody who doesn't know, obviously they think, right, oh, I don't want to have the pleasure, but I want happiness, let me go drink Coke. And it's not driving the purpose. And so this device activity is exactly the same thing, because we always kind of try to push out some of the things we want to do. And also, the companies, social media companies, they know that instead of watching like a 1 minute video, I would rather watch 10-second videos. Right? It is like it's a various different thing, basically. And I think that is what this generation is kind of going through as compared to our generation. When I look back, that the fundamental competitor for the next generation is the device time. Because when you don't have a device time, like, you go out and play, you play in the playgrounds, and you make friendships there, you have ups and downs and things like that. And here, but everything, you're playing video games, and you're sitting at home, you're not going out, not getting, so there's so many other things, like you're not reading books, you would rather watch something rather than read. These are the fundamental challenges. I think the person who can manage their time well, I would think, will be very successful in this kind of a generation. And so what I try to suggest to my take is, nobody's asking you not to watch, but have a time. We all know how tough it is to stop like a YouTube video after the alarm clock goes. It's very tough, but having the discipline to do that, I think that's what is the biggest challenge.
It's interesting. So, what do you think is the value that underestimated in this modern society?
That's a great question. I would think relationships or interacting with different people. We don't emphasize that enough. Like, you could be, in a crowded place, and everybody's looking into their own phones. A simple thing like that. It's humans in general are very kind of curious, right? I would like to know, like in Korea, what happens, what do you eat, or what is it? And it's just a learning thing, because it's so different, like we are so diverse, because and the way we do, and it's always interesting to see, how other people do, how things are in their country. And I find that, so I somehow feel that has come down a lot. It has come down a lot mainly because, like, people are a lot more suspicious. There's so many other things that have kind of pulled back. Even 20 years ago, I remember people freely, going to school, like cycling and walking and all that. And now, you have like the parents dropping them and, picking them up, like, right, even though the school is just a few blocks away. I'm seeing that, those are some of the things that have changed. And I think just that closeness with people, I think interaction with people, I think that I would say maybe one of the biggest differences, I would think, between, the current generation.
I really agree with that. Okay, then this would be the final question. As someone who is working in here for many years, what is the life lessons that you have learned in the US?
So one thing is, it is your journey first, right? Everybody's journey is unique. Just because I went to school with somebody in India, we all have the same background, doesn't mean that you come here, you'll have the same. We all form our own paths, right? US gives you that kind of a freedom, honestly, for you to follow what you're passionate about. I think that is fundamentally, you got to be true to yourself. You want to do what you are interested in. You don't want to wake up and try to go to a job which you don't like. It's very tough, actually. The second thing what I have also learned is, we have to, work takes a big part of your life. And so, so working in a company or working with people who you respect, in a company that's doing really well. But I think forming relationships, either business relationships, in general, like relationships at the other thing is wherever you're living, contributing to that area, right? However, in different way, that makes a big difference actually, because giving, there is a pleasure in giving, right? In the sense, when I say there's a pleasure, I don't mean like pleasure, but it tends towards happiness actually. When you give, you're a lot more happy than when it's a pleasure. It's a lot more taking that is involved actually. So I would say that volunteering gives a lot of that kind of a happiness that you basically do. So I think having some passions that you can hold on to, even maybe beyond your working life, I think that is something that is kind of important.
That's cool. Then I think our question is all finished, but could you please, when we do a Zoom before, I think the good answer that you shared to me is we underestimated the decades than the day or the week or the year. So could you just briefly mention that about?
Yes. So we normally overestimate what we can do in the next year, but we underestimate what we can accomplish in a decade. And typically, the reason for that is when we set a goal for a near term, which is in the next year, we think we are gung ho and think that, we can do this, and we kind of set very lofty goals. But when we look at what we can really accomplish in a decade, is a long time. You can make a significant, like life changes in decades basically, right? And I think that is where we kind of have to look at. So that is the long-term perspective we always have to look at, is what am I going to do in the next decade, because that's a nice yardstick. Like even if you kind of think about something out of the box, something very large goal, it's possible, I think, to achieve something like that. 10 years is a good span to kind of achieve something like that. But many a times when we ask somebody, or even sometimes when I go back and see what I kind of expected in a decade, the goals are not very high.
That's
Right. And I think sometimes thinking big is always it's always a positive though. So
Then interview is all finished.
Okay.
So let's finish this interview.
okay.
Thank you for accepting my interview again.
Thank you very much.
it's
Greatly
really-
appreciate for this opportunity.
It's appreciated. It's really good to listen your story.